Tales of Herding Gods, Episode 51. Interpreting classic original works and savoring human destiny. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Wood God Chronicles Original Work Interpretations series. Fellow Taoists who enjoy it, please like and support us. Picking up from last time, Grand Mountain Libationer took Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu out to establish themselves. Their destination this time was the barbarian empire of the frontier. Along the way, Grand Mountain Libationer briefly reviewed the manuals Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu had chosen, roughly glancing through them. Holding the manuals Qin Mu submitted, he felt a headache coming on. The manuals Ling Yuxiu chose were sword arts, divine abilities, or at least spells. Among the ones Qin Mu submitted, aside from the sunset sword art, which was somewhat normal, the other two truly stumped him. One of these two articles was called Thousand Souls Beckon, and the other was called Art of Commanding Ghosts and Dispatching Gods. Any sword art, divine ability, or spell has basic techniques that can be followed. As the saying goes, one can extrapolate from one instance and infer from one example. With Grand Mountain Libationer's profound knowledge, he could guide them all. However, the two manuals Qin Mu chose were obscure among the obscure, and asking him to explain them was truly asking too much. Thousand Souls Beckon and Art of Commanding Ghosts and Dispatching Gods, in the eyes of an existence at his realm, had insufficient power as spells, nor did they possess anything particularly striking. He truly didn't know what Qin Mu's intention was in choosing these two spells. Haha, old Demon Hong could only say that these two obscure cultivation techniques were very reliable and would clearly be of great use in the future. Grand Mountain Libationer sat on the ox's back, tossing the two manuals to Qin Mu and telling him to study them himself. Then he began to explain to Ling Yuxiu the manual he had brought from the Heavenly Deer Pavilion. As a royal descendant, Ling Yuxiu could enter the second floor of the Heavenly Deer Pavilion. This time, he had brought out a profound Taoist art from the Taoist sect called Azure Firmament Thunder Concealment. The orthodox Taoist thunder arts naturally lived up to their reputation, and Grand Mountain Libationer explained it eloquently. Many difficult-to-understand points, after his guidance, Ling Yuxiu suddenly comprehended. Qin Mu also listened intently. He suddenly thought that Azure Firmament Thunder Concealment could be referenced against the 8 forms of thunderous sound, perhaps yielding unexpected power. His thoughts wandered, and he didn't clearly hear what Grand Mountain Libationer said afterward, immersed in his own calculations. Under Grand Mountain Libationer's guidance and explanation, Ling Yuxiu was thoroughly convinced, exclaiming, "Teacher Grand Mountain is truly formidable." Grand Mountain Libationer himself was a sect master-level existence, with vast knowledge. In past years, he had also studied the cultivation techniques and divine abilities of various sects, schools, and Buddhist teachings at the Grand Academy. His profound knowledge already made him a peak-tier expert in Yukan Kingdom. The group continued towards the border pass. Along the way, Grand Mountain Libationer taught and explained to the two of them, going over the manuals they had brought from the Heavenly Deer Pavilion. After 2 or 3 days, they finally arrived near Qimen Pass. Qimen Pass was the border between Yukan Kingdom and the Barbarian Empire, and also the border between the Grand Ruins and the Barbarian Empire. Between Qimen Pass and the Barbarian Empire's border pass, there was a distance of over 100 li. In the center of this 100-li stretch, there was a mountain forest stretching for over 10 li. This forest extended from the Grand Ruins. It was a protrusion of the Grand Ruins. Every night, darkness would descend, separating the two mighty passes. Therefore, when the Barbarian Empire and Yukan Kingdom fought, they could only fight during the day. The stalemate in the war was also due to this. The soldiers on both sides vividly called this Grand Ruins land the Duck's Tongue. Upon entering Qimen Pass, old General Bian Jinyun, along with his soldiers, knelt on one knee, bowing deeply to Qin Mu. It turned out that the pure young reverence refining pill formula Qin Mu had given earlier was extremely effective against the Barbarian Empire's witchcraft, saving countless lives of border soldiers. The border soldiers held little divine physician Qin in great respect. That evening, they even held a grand banquet to entertain them. The next morning, Bian Jinyun saw Qin Mu and his companions off and presented a plate of gold ingots. He explained that the barbarian empire did not recognize Yenkang's currency, only gold, so the divine physician should take it as travel expenses. Qin Mu thanked him. Everyone boarded Qinglu, the ox, and slowly walked out of the pass. They passed through the Duck's Tongue region of the Grand Ruins and arrived beyond the frontier. From afar, they saw dust rising everywhere. Within the dust, several strange beasts with bone spurs growing on their heads came galloping, carrying tall and burly tribal warriors who shouted loudly. Grand Mountain Libationer stood with both feet on Qingliu's back and suddenly drew his carved orb. The tribal warriors charging towards them saw the tattoo on his chest and quickly ordered their beasts to stop. They then turned their beast mounts and galloped away. Grand Mountain Libationer closed his robe and dismounted from the ox. Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu were both somewhat puzzled, wondering why these barbarians would show deference upon seeing him. They arrived at the barbarian empire's border pass, which was also a tall city with very strict defenses. Grand Mountain Libationer led everyone to the foot of the pass. The city gates opened, and many barbarian soldiers lined up on both sides, respectfully welcoming them into the pass. Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu were even more perplexed. Just then, a general guarding the barbarian empire's border pass walked over, laughing heartily. "Wukan, unrivaled under heaven. My king of the steppes. Long time no see. Ever since your excellency became an official of Yenkang Kingdom, the reputation of Wukan has become utterly infamous." Grand Mountain Libationer laughed heartily in return. "I was never a person of the steppes to begin with. I merely defeated your warriors on the steppes and was thus revered by you as Wukan." Wukan. Qin Mu and the others exchanged glances. Hu Linger asked curiously, "Libationer, what is that tattoo on your chest? Why do they show deference to you when they see it?" Grand Mountain Libationer opened his robe, revealing a strange skull covered in bone spurs embroidered on his chest. He then closed his robe, explaining, "This is the tattoo of the barbarian empire's Khan. It is blessed by the martial venerable of the barbarian empire's sacred land. Not everyone has it. I was originally the Khan of the barbarian empire. Back then, I traveled everywhere with my esteemed teacher. When I came to the barbarian empire, I heard that they revered martial arts, so I challenged the strong cultivators of the steppes. I fought 100 battles without a single defeat, and thus I was revered as Wukan. Wukan in Yenkang Kingdom means martial emperor." Qin Mu secretly clicked his tongue, thinking, "Martial emperor? Senior brother Grand Mountain's reputation in the barbarian empire is actually so resounding." Ling Yuxiu quickly added, "Teacher, you're an expert of the combat achievement school." Grand Mountain Libationer nodded, a smile appearing on his face. "Back then, I followed my esteemed teacher to cultivate saber arts. Later, my esteemed teacher disappeared, and my saber arts made no progress for a long time. Also, with the Imperial Preceptor's reforms, I came to Yenkang to learn spells and sword arts. I hope to use the knowledge of other schools to break through my bottleneck. However, speaking of it, my strongest is not combat achievements, but combat methods." The barbarian general led everyone further into the pass, saying, "Wukan, what brings you to our country? Ever since you defected to Yenkang Kingdom, all the heroes of our steppes despise you greatly. They want to reclaim the title of Wukan." Grand Mountain Libationer laughed. "My disciples from the Grand Academy want to retrace my path from back then and challenge the young heroes of the Wu cult." The barbarian general's body trembled as he looked at Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu, sneering, "Just them." Grand Mountain Libationer replied, "Just them. This time, I'm here to go to the Lulan Golden Palace, the sacred land of the steppes, and block its entrance. It was by blocking the entrance of the Lulan Golden Palace back then that I earned the title of Wukan." The Manchu general's eye twitched violently. He sneered, "Back then, with the Heavenly Khan present, you were only able to successfully block the gate. But now, how does your strength compare to the Heavenly Khan's?" Grand Mountain Libationer replied, "Though I am not his equal, I am not far behind." The Manchu general's expression darkened. He then turned to a soldier and ordered, "Release the eagles, vultures, and wolves. Notify the Lulan Golden Palace that Wukan has come to block their gate." A moment later, winged giant wolves soared into the sky, flying straight towards the depths of the grasslands. The Manchu general then looked at Grand Mountain Libationer and said, "My apologies for the disrespect, Wukan. The path ahead is fraught with difficulties. Please proceed." Grand Mountain Libationer laughed heartily and led Qin Mu and the others into the grasslands. Ling Yuxiu asked, "Teacher Dashan, who is this heavenly Khan that barbarian just mentioned?" Grand Mountain Libationer looked up at the sky and calmly replied, "My master is Butcher. Back then, he brought me to the Lulan Golden Palace to block their gate, and he was revered as the heavenly emperor of the frontier." Qin Mu was startled. Butcher Grandpa was actually so mighty in the past. Butcher, with his fiery temper, always seemed annoyed by everyone every day. Who would have thought that he once held the title of Heavenly Khan? Heavenly Khan is Heavenly Emperor. What an awe-inspiring title Heavenly Emperor is. Qin Mu truly couldn't imagine how domineering Butcher must have been back then. Hu Linger muttered, "The 5 emperors of the frontier. Heavenly Emperor of the frontier. Amazing!" By nightfall, they arrived at a village to rest. Sitting by the bonfire, Grand Mountain Libationer explained, "Yankang Nation has 3 major sects. The foremost righteous path sect is the Tao sect, the foremost Buddhist sect is the Great Thunderclap Temple, and the foremost demonic path sect is the Heavenly Demon sect. However, on the grasslands, the foremost sacred land is the Lulan Golden Palace, which is the largest Wu cult. The Wu cult of the Lulan Golden Palace holds extremely high status on the grasslands. The Khans on the grasslands are all granted military authority by the Wu Venerable of the Lulan Golden Palace. If an old Khan dies and his son wishes to succeed him, he needs to travel to the Lulan Golden Palace to seek authorization from the Wu Venerable." Ling Yuxiu said, "Our Yankang Nation was once like this too. I heard my imperial father say that in its early years, Yankang Nation was only the size of a single city and was a vassal state of the Longevity Gate. Back then, our Lin clan wasn't even royalty. Later, the sect master of the Longevity Gate grew tired of the emperor at the time and directly deposed him. He then chose my ancestor to be the emperor, directly changing the dynasty. After that, our Lin clan worked hard to govern and develop, secretly growing stronger. Finally, we eliminated the Longevity Gate, and only then did we truly rise." Qin Mu was slightly taken aback, having had no idea that Yankang Nation had such a history. Qin Mu asked, "Senior brother, how does the power of this Lulan Golden Palace compare to the 3 great sects?" Grand Mountain Libationer replied, "It's about the same." Qin Mu's eyes lit up. Blocking the gate of the Lulan Golden Palace is equivalent to blocking the mountain gate of the Tao sect or the Great Thunderclap Temple. The difficulty is unimaginable. However, this time we are not going to the Lulan Golden Palace to block their gate, but to steal something, Butcher's lower body. Grand Mountain Libationer chuckled, "Junior brother, princess, you too will block the gate. I'll go into the palace to steal the item. Once I have it, we'll leave immediately. Princess, these next few days, I will strengthen your foundation and ensure the 9 Dragons Emperor's art of the imperial family is pushed to its limits." Ling Yuxiu felt a slight tremor of apprehension in her heart. The next day, the group set off again, but this time Grand Mountain Libationer made them walk. As they walked, he had Ling Yuxiu practice the cultivation techniques she had learned. Grand Mountain Libationer's gaze was sharp. Any flaw in Ling Yuxiu's movements, he would know at a glance. He would then instruct her to correct it, making her practice diligently, again and again. Grand Mountain Libationer was ruthlessly honing her fundamentals, making her cultivate diligently to unleash the full power of the 9 Dragons Emperor's art. More than 10 days later, she had been polished by Grand Mountain Libationer as if she had become a completely different person, and her strength improved rapidly. The 9 Dragons Emperor's art itself was a cultivation method for divine abilities and spells, whose power lay in their explosive force, such as the Flame Art Divine Ability. Grand Mountain Libationer picked up Ling Yuxiu's large iron hammer and demonstrated to Qin Mu how to integrate the Flame Art Divine Ability into it, thereby combining battle techniques and spells. Grand Mountain Libationer's demonstration of combining spells and battle techniques also pointed out a path for Qin Mu, a way to integrate two different cultivation methods into one. Even though Grand Mountain Libationer's abilities were not as great as Butcher's, he could still be called a grandmaster of his generation, and his title of 5 Emperors was well-deserved. Grand Mountain Libationer retracted his hammer technique and returned the glowing red iron hammer to Ling Yuxiu, saying, "My blade cultivation cannot be as pure and aggressive as my esteemed master's, so I could only forge a different path. My esteemed master's blade can cleave heaven and earth and cut through the firmament. A single strike can break any spell or divine ability in the world. I cannot do that." Therefore, when the Imperial Advisor initiated his reforms, I entered the Imperial Academy to study divine abilities and spells, attempting to achieve a breakthrough. Princess Yuxiu, with your foundation in the 9 Dragons Emperor's art, it would be best for you to follow my path. Ling Yuxiu was completely convinced and earnestly sought guidance from Grand Mountain Libationer. Even when he made her practice her fundamentals diligently again, she no longer complained. Qin Mu also couldn't resist the temptation and sought advice from Grand Mountain Libationer, who, of course, held nothing back and answered all questions. Even Hu Linger and Qing Niu benefited greatly. They journeyed deep into the grasslands, practicing the river of battle arts along the way. Ling Yuxiu had already initially grasped its techniques and sparred fiercely with Qin Mu, leaving both of them drenched in sweat. While resting, Qin Mu took out a scented handkerchief to wipe his sweat. Ling Yuxiu smiled. "Imperial Academy scholar, let me help you wipe." She snatched it from his hand and lightly wiped his forehead. Qin Mu noticed sweat beads on her forehead too. "You're sweating too," he said. "Let me wipe it for you." Ling Yuxiu, blushing, handed him the scented handkerchief. "What's going on?" Just one trip out, and their feelings are rapidly warming up. If they were to elope to escape danger later, it's likely things would be settled. Suddenly, Grand Mountain Libationer's expression changed drastically. He raised both hands and pushed forward, shouting, "Cliff of Heavenly Ridge." Accompanying his explosive roar, a wall of light, dozens of zhang tall and almost without any thickness, appeared before them. At this moment, waves of battle cries suddenly came from ahead, indicating a battlefield was shifting towards them. It turned out General Ptolemy was leading his troops in pursuit of the rebellious Tielmu tribe's army from among the Manchu people. After the wind, rain, and thunder legions took turns casting their spells, the Tielmu tribe suffered heavy casualties. Knowing he was no match and couldn't escape, the old Manchu general immediately fell to his knees with a thud and loudly declared, "General Ptolemy, this old man surrenders. I surrender. I beg General Ptolemy to spare our lives." A cold glint flashed in General Ptolemy's eyes. He coldly said, "You Tielmu tribe rebelled and caused chaos. And you still wish to live? The Khan has commanded to accept no surrender." Then General Ptolemy's army charged forward, slaughtering every last one of the remaining Manchu rebels, leaving none alive. Many Manchu soldiers cut off heads, one by one, and hung them from their waists, cheering loudly. Some were even fighting over heads, arguing whether you killed it or I killed it. Qin Mu frowned. Even in great ruins, there was no custom of snatching heads. Instead, they collected souls and offered them to the Golden Palace. General Ptolemy, riding his white elephant, stepped forward and asked Grand Libationer Dashan from atop his elephant, "Could it be Wukan?" Grand Libationer Dashan nodded. Golden light flickered in General Ptolemy's eyes as he perceived that Wukan, having alone blocked 800 Prairie Divine Ability practitioners, was indeed extraordinary, though not as formidable as the legends claimed. "It seems you won't be able to keep the title of Wukan," General Ptolemy said. Grand Libationer Dashan chuckled, standing steadily atop his elephant. General Ptolemy suddenly rose from the elephant's back, his sword light surging and sword chi tearing through the air as he thrust his sword towards Grand Libationer Dashan. In an instant, sword light filled the sky. Grand Libationer Dashan reached out, drew his blade, and with a single strike, slashed. The sword light suddenly vanished, leaving only a single blade spanning across heaven and earth. With a thunderous boom, the blade light disappeared, and General Ptolemy, who had been on the elephant's back, vanished without a trace. Only a long cry could be heard from behind them as General Torimu flew further and further away, sent by that single blade to who knew where. Your skill isn't bad, Grand Libationer Dashin said. It's just your judgment is too poor. A moment later, General Torimu returned. His armor cleaved open and split into two halves. When he looked at Grand Libationer Dashin again, his eyes held a newfound awe and respect. Wukan, your renown on the prairie still circulates to this day. General Torimu knelt on one knee, placed his palm on his chest, and asked, Wukan, are you going to the Golden Palace? Wuzuan has already issued an order for us to await you. Grand Libationer Dashin nodded. I understand. Rise. Back then, Wuzuan bestowed upon me the name Wukan. Now it seems, since he personally bestowed it, he naturally wants to personally take it back. On your prairie, there must have appeared some new heroes and valiant men, right? Otherwise, why would Wuzuan be so eager for me to go to the Lulan Golden Palace? Torimu rose and said, the valiant men on our prairie are as numerous as the stars in the sky. There will naturally be someone to defeat Wukan. Linger giggled, General, I really like the way you boast. Boasting? Who dares boast more than me? The green ox sneered. It then suddenly spotted the white elephant, immediately trotted over, rubbed against its body, and chuckled, White elephant, are you male or female? The white elephant swung its trunk at its face, making the green ox's nose bleed profusely. Linger leaned into the green ox's ear and whispered, it's female. The green ox's spirits lifted. It chuckled at the white elephant, your skin is so white. I like you. Do you eat peonies? I have some tender ones here, so tender you could squeeze water from them. Torimu led his troops to escort them to the Lulan Golden Palace. After their brief skirmish, Torimu held them in high regard, and along the way, they were well fed, watered, and treated with utmost respect. After 6 or 7 days, they arrived at the deepest part of the prairie, not far from the Lulan Golden Palace. Torimu no longer accompanied them, but instead led his troops away with a roar, returning to his own tribe. Grand Libationer Dashin frowned, saying, it seems Wuzuan is very serious about my arrival. This time, he's determined to reclaim the title of Wukan. I'm afraid that once we reach the Golden Palace, I'll be the one who's challenged. If that's the case, I'll have no time to steal back Enshi's lower body. Qinmu, however, said, Senior brother, I once learned the art of thievery. Grand Libationer Dashin glanced at him and shook his head, saying, the Lulan Golden Palace is the prairie's sacred ground, equivalent to the Dao sect's great thunderclap temple. Such sacred places are filled with numerous traps, densely covered with formations and various seals. The thievery methods you learned will be utterly useless. You won't be able to break through its seals and traps. Qinmu earnestly said, the person who taught me thievery was very formidable. He's Grandpa K from our village. Although he's missing a leg, Grand Libationer Dashin waved his hand, interrupting, his leg was cut off by someone. That only proves his skill wasn't refined. You don't need to worry about how to steal back Enshi's lower body. I'll handle this matter. The two of you just focus on blocking the Golden Palace's mountain gate. Leave the rest to me. He didn't give Qinmu a chance to speak, adding, the only difficulty is, I'm worried Wuzuan might use a will battle tactic against me, making it difficult for me to get away. Not long after, the Lulan Golden Palace finally appeared before everyone's eyes. From afar, they saw that on the boundless prairie, a vast lake had suddenly appeared, its emerald waves rippling as wide as an ocean in the middle of the prairie. At the other end of the lake were continuous mountain ranges. The tall mountains were covered in a mantle of white, piled high with snow, and among these majestic peaks, one glittered with golden light. Qinmu opened his divine heavenly eye and looked, only then realizing it wasn't a golden mountain, but a magnificent and resplendent palace. Grand Libationer Dashin arrived at the lakeside. Qinmu looked down and saw a wooden boat moored there, on which stood a man with horns on his head, dressed in black, holding a bamboo pole at the bow. On the surface of the lake, wooden poles were stuck in the water in disarray, and on each pole hung a rotting human head. Qinmu thought to himself, the The Great Wu Rainbow Soul Cultivation Method is even more like a demonic cult than our heavenly saint cult. The man's face somewhat resembled a goat's, but it was a brown, goat-like face, different in color from ordinary white goats, and there wasn't much hair on it. Yang Mianda. Qin Mu was slightly startled. When he was in the capital, he had treated several soldiers from the border pass who had been afflicted by witchcraft poison, and he recalled them saying they had encountered a barbarian with horns on his head who shone a mirror at them, causing them to fall into an unconscious stupor. Yang Mianda glanced at them and, with a sharp voice, said, "Wu Qihan, Wu Zuan has been waiting for a long time. Please board the boat." Grand Libationer Dashin boarded the vessel, saying, "This lake is the weak water. It has no buoyancy. Even a feather floating on it would sink to the bottom. One must rely on the Lulan Golden Palace's boat to cross it. Let's board the boat." Qin Mu and the others also came aboard. That Da's gaze fell upon Qin Mu and Lin Yuxiu, and he sneered as he steered the boat towards the opposite shore. Here, one couldn't step on the weak water to cross, nor could one fly across, because the air was dead, making flight impossible. The air above the lake was fixed by an inexplicable force, completely stagnant. If one stopped moving, even a single breath would create a vacuum, and they would suffocate to death. Ling also tried, finding that her wind and rain summoning spells were utterly useless here. According to Yang Miandao, going around wasn't impossible, but the weak water lake was too wide. It would take 2 days to go around, and few who entered the snow mountains could make it out. Qin Mu secretly activated his divine Hal Heavenly Eye and clear firmament Heavenly Eye, looking up into the air. Hazy and indistinct, he saw mist-like sand enveloping the entire airspace above the lake. His heart stirred slightly. The thing that prevents the air from flowing must be this azure sand, he thought. He inadvertently looked down into the water, and his heart was greatly shaken when he saw that at the bottom of this lake, countless piles of white bones were sunk to the bottom of the water. Grand Mountain Libationer then said, "Those were all slaves consumed by the witchcraft cultivation technique." Qin Mu felt a chill run down his spine. Yang Mian Grand Shaman's boat traveled very quickly. He possessed a unique secret technique that allowed him to move across the lake surface like the wind. Even the weak water could not make this boat sink. Before long, the wooden boat docked at the foot of the snowy mountain. That Yang Mian Grand Shaman chuckled, "Wu Qihan." Grand Mountain Libationer smiled faintly and walked towards the resplendent golden peak. A long, low horn blast came from the mountain. The sound was deep and powerful, causing people's eardrums and chests to vibrate in resonance. In the distance, avalanches suddenly occurred on several snowy mountains, further adding to the solemn atmosphere. Grand Mountain Libationer laughed heartily, overpowering the horn blasts and the roar of the avalanches. Qin Mu and the others still didn't feel anything amiss, but the people on the mountain were shaken by his laughter, causing their qi and blood to boil. Their qi and blood rushed to their heads, which swelled as if they were about to explode. At this moment, a deep voice came from the mountain. "Wu Qihan, your cultivation is profound, even surpassing your past self. Why the need for such an intimidating display as soon as you arrive? Wu Qihan, please come up the mountain for a moment." This voice, amidst Grand Mountain Libationer's laughter, was still clearly audible. The voice was ancient but filled with power, clearly belonging to an unparalleled expert. Grand Mountain Libationer said, "Wu Zun has spoken, I naturally must obey. However, I have come here to block the mountain gate, not to drink alcohol. I shall ascend the mountain now." Qin Mu looked up. He saw a staircase paved with gold, extending all the way up the mountain. However, they hadn't walked far when a massive golden gateway stood before them. It had no door panels. This gateway was entirely forged from gold, over 10 zhang tall and over 20 zhang wide, inlaid with precious jade and pearls. It was truly extravagant. In the past, the butcher had brought Grand Mountain Libationer here, and they had blocked the mountain gate for 3 months, defeating the young prodigies of the Lulan Golden Palace, and fighting all the experts who had rushed from all corners of the grasslands upon hearing the news. Grand Mountain Libationer was thus revered by the grasslands as the 5 emperors. And the butcher, back then, also went through hundreds of battles, big and small, and beat up all the older generation of the Wukan Golden Palace, earning the esteemed titles of Heavenly Khan and Heavenly Emperor. Grand Mountain Libationer led them to the mountain gate. They saw many grand shamans already waiting there, as well as some powerhouses from the grasslands who were not disciples of the Golden Palace, also standing guard. They were likely renowned figures from the grasslands who had rushed over upon hearing the news. Grand Mountain Libationer shouted, "Nyo Nyo!" Ching Nyo let out a low roar, and its body suddenly swelled with a thump-thump sound. Muscles bulged, and its body grew taller and taller, transforming into a bull-headed monster with golden, writhing muscles. It strode to the Golden Mountain Gate, shrugged its shoulders, and uprooted the incredibly heavy mountain gate. The grand shamans and powerhouses nearby were all stunned. Grand Mountain Libationer said calmly, "Carry the gate up the mountain." Qin Mu understood Grand Mountain Libationer's intention. Blocking the gate at the foot of the mountain would make it difficult to enter the heartland of the Wukan Golden Palace. But carrying the gate up the mountain and blocking the main hall of the Golden Palace with it would then make it convenient to steal the butcher's lower body. However, doing so would also completely offend the Wukan Golden Palace. He feared this trip would be a fight to the death. Grand Mountain Libationer snorted coldly and walked forward. A sound transmission reached Qin Mu's ears. "Once we're up the mountain, it won't be just the two of you blocking the gate. I'm afraid they'll make a move on me. This time, things are a bit different from what I expected," Qin Mu mused inwardly. "The person who told me to steal things was a cripple. He's truly formidable." Grand Mountain Libationer asked, "How did he become crippled?" Qin Mu said, "It seems he was caught while stealing something and had a leg chopped off. The cripple's leg was chopped off by the Imperial Preceptor of Yenkang when he was stealing the Earth diagram in the Imperial Palace. His leg is still with the Imperial Preceptor and will be stolen back later. Just like the butcher's lower body, both will be reattached by Qin Mu. And the true purpose of the three of them blocking the gate this time was to steal back the butcher's lower body." Grand Mountain Libationer sneered, "When I heard you say he was crippled, I knew he was caught stealing and had his leg chopped off. Have you ever stolen anything?" Qin Mu hesitated again and shook his head, saying, "I haven't tried yet." Grand Mountain Libationer completely gave up hope. His expression flickered uncertainly, then he suddenly shoved a map into Qin Mu's hand. "This is a map of the Golden Palace's layout," he said. "Keep it for now. Hopefully you won't need it, but for now we'll take it one step at a time. Once we reach the Golden Palace, adapt to the circumstances. Perhaps I'll find an opportunity to steal my master's lower body." The Wukan Golden Palace's staircase was extremely long, extending all the way to the mountain peak. Qin Mu, Ling Yuxiu, and the others followed Grand Mountain Libationer up the mountain. They saw that on both sides of the path stood many dazzling golden divine statues. Each statue was extremely bizarre, possessing characteristics of humans, gods, and demons simultaneously. Their appearances were varied and strange. Qin Mu looked back. The powerhouses from the grasslands and the Manchu grand shamans had fire in their eyes, yet followed them without a word. Ahead, many glittering golden palaces gradually appeared. Beneath these palaces stood some strangely shaped people. Some had horns on their heads, some had wings on their backs, some had beast heads, while others had snake tails. Yet, they were precisely not demon beasts. It was actually easy to understand, because their strange forms were all grafted. They grafted parts of demon beasts' limbs onto their own bodies. Thus, it seemed Hu Linger and Qingnyo, who were demon beasts, were transforming towards a human form, whereas the powerhouses of the Wukan Golden Palace seemed to be transforming towards a non-human form. This was the difference in cultivation philosophies between the frontier and Yenkang. Transforming towards a non-human form, approaching gods and demons, was what they called grand enlightenment. However, there were still some people in ordinary human form. These people should be able to freely control their bodies, transforming at will and retracting at will. Their divine abilities were fluid. In front of these halls, there were also many cages, filled with people. The people in the cages were likely the Wukan Golden Palace's shamans, materials for their cultivation. Ling Yuxiu's expression darkened slightly. Anger stirred in her heart. These are citizens of my Yankang nation. Qinmu suddenly said, Yankang nation also kidnaps citizens of my Great Su and treats them as slaves. Ling Yuxiu's body trembled slightly, and she fell silent. Hu Linger grew angry. She pouted and said, Young master, they don't just use humans for cultivation. Demon beasts have also been captured. Qinmu looked over. Indeed, in several cages, some monsters were imprisoned. Grand Mountain Libationer said, the witchcraft sect possesses peculiar cultivation methods. They cultivate using souls to alter their physical structure. For example, by absorbing a bird's soul, they can grow wings or a bird's head. Absorbing a sheep's soul, their bodies will also transform towards that of a sheep. Those who master divine abilities are called grand shamans. Those who haven't mastered divine abilities are called shamans. And those who reach the celestial realm are called shaman kings. The Lulan Golden Palace is a sacred land within the witchcraft sect. Its cultivation technique is called Wu Zun Lu Luo Jing, and it is quite extraordinary. Upon reaching the mountain peak, they saw that it was extraordinarily luxurious. Palaces and buildings were closely connected, dazzling with golden light. But even the pillars of the main hall were so thick that two people could barely embrace them. And there were even more golden divine statues. Many Manchu tribesmen of the grasslands stood beneath numerous golden divine statues. Suddenly, one of the golden divine statues moved. Qinmu's heart jolted. Only then did he realize that these were not golden divine statues, but rather grand shamans. These grand shamans of the Lulan Golden Palace had actually cultivated their bodies until they resembled pure gold, emitting a golden radiance. Beneath a majestic gateway in front of the Golden Palace, the grand shamans stood, each one like a dazzling, golden divine being, majestic and solemn. Leading them was an old man with golden hair and a golden body, tall and burly. Clad in golden robes, holding a scepter and wearing a feathered crown, he looked directly at Wu Zun. His voice boomed like a great bell. Kanwu, you have been carefree for so many years. Why do you deliver yourself to our doorstep today? Deliver myself to your doorstep? Well said. Qingyu set down the mountain gate. With a resounding crash, Qingyu set down the mountain gate. Grand Shaman Jijio laughed heartily. Wu Zun, I've brought the mountain gate. These dazzling golden senior brothers, it seems most of them have been beaten by me. Back then, I blocked your gate for 100 days. I injured and killed quite a few people. The strong ones couldn't be spared. The weak ones, however, all survived in my hands. These weak ones are precisely all of you present today. As soon as he uttered these words, the entire mountain immediately erupted in an uproar. All the elder generation experts of the Lulan Golden Palace were furious beyond measure. Immediately, a chilling aura of killing intent permeated the air. Grand Shaman Jijio's tongue was a bit too venomous. In one fell swoop, he had completely offended all the experts of the Lulan Golden Palace, inciting public wrath. Coupled with carrying the mountain gate up the mountain, this matter would certainly not end peacefully. One of the grand shamans, with a solemn appearance, spoke, his voice like the clashing of metal and stone. He said coldly, our injuries healed long ago. Over the years, our Golden Palace has been recuperating and building strength. We originally intended to cross swords with Kan Wu once more, to wash away our past humiliation. Grand Shaman Jijio revealed a smile. There will be a chance. However, I came here this time to block your gate, not to kill you all. He led Qinmu and Ling Yuxiu forward, arriving beneath the Golden Mountain Gate. He looked up, examining the mountain gate, recalling the past. He sighed with emotion, saying, back then, when I followed the human emperor, I killed quite a few people right beneath this very gate. The grand shamans, each one dazzling golden like a divine being, stared fixedly at him, their eyes spitting fire. Grand Shaman Jijio turned his head and winked at Qinmu and Ling Yuxiu. He smiled and said, and now this mountain gate is entrusted to you too. Ling Yuxiu felt a bit uneasy. She whispered, teacher, the rules here seem different from those in Yankang. Grand Shaman Jijio smiled. He said softly, when the Tao sect and Great Thunderclap Temple came to block the gate of the Imperial College, it was merely a contest of abilities, not distinguishing between life and death. And after the fight, they would still be amicable. But here, everyone fights to the death. You can spare your opponent's life if you wish. However, if you encounter an expert on par with yourself, you must kill them. Then it's hard to hold back. Back then, when I was here, I encountered many experts who were on par with me. That's why quite a few people died. Ling Yuxiu's scalp tingled. Qin Mu also composed himself and took a deep breath. Finally, it's according to the rules of the Great Ruins. Wu Zun walked to the Golden Mountain Gate, his gaze falling upon Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu. Regarding blocking the gate, we'll follow the old rules. Life or death is irrelevant. However, besides that, I also need to reclaim the title of Kanwu. Life or death, then. Grand Shaman Jijiu's expression remained unchanged. He declared loudly, "Gentlemen. They are both at the martial demon realm cultivation level." Wu Zun's expression was as calm as an ancient well. He tapped his scepter. He said indifferently, "We understand the rules of blocking the gate. Disciples of the Golden Palace, heed my command. Contend with them at the martial demon realm. Kill them. Anyone who dares to exceed the martial demon realm, I will take their life." His voice wasn't loud, but it echoed throughout the entire mountain. As soon as Wu Zun uttered these words, he immediately looked at Grand Shaman Jijiu, revealing a faint smile. "Kanwu, back then, Heavenly Khan brought you to my Golden Palace to block the gate. Heavenly Khan's boundless divine abilities were naturally admirable. But you are not Heavenly Khan." Grand Shaman Jijiu's expression turned solemn. He stepped past the mountain gate, his voice entering Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu's minds. "Junior brother, princess, don't worry. As long as they don't kill me, they will still challenge you according to the rules. However, if I am killed by them, then you two will also be in danger." Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu felt a chill in their hearts. Their safety hinged on Grand Shaman Jijiu's life. If Grand Shaman Jijiu were stripped of the title of Kanwu, and after eliminating him, Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu were killed, no one would leak the news. The Lulan Golden Palace's reputation would remain untarnished, and the outside world would not even know about this challenge. Qingyu shouted loudly, "Grandpa, don't get killed." Grand Shaman Jijiu's footsteps paused. He quickly turned his head and glared angrily, "After we return, you'll eat beef." Qingyu immediately shrank his head back. Suddenly, a voice came from behind Qin Mu. "You two youths, how audacious. Do you know that you are blocking the gate of a holy land?" Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu looked down the mountain. They saw many strange-looking shamans walking towards them, blocking their path. One of the shamans stepped forward, his body glowing with a faint golden light. He had horns on his head, wings on his back, and a bird's beak. Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu bowed in greeting, but the Golden Palace shaman did not return the courtesy. His voice was sonorous and powerful. "Etiquette is something from your Yankong nation. Our Lulan Golden Palace doesn't have so many rules. After killing you two, I will absorb your souls to cultivate divine abilities. People like you are much stronger than those slaves, and your souls are incredibly resilient. They are perfect for cultivating divine abilities." Qin Mu's eyes flickered. "Junior sister," he said, "this time, I'll go first to test their cultivation methods and divine abilities." Ling Yuxiu nodded. Next, it would be Qin Mu facing off against the many experts of the Lulan Golden Palace. This was no mere sparring match, but a battle of life and death. So, can Qin Mu withstand it? Tune in next time to find out. Okay, that's all the content for this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. After all, your support is my motivation to keep creating content. I'm Qin Mu. See you in the next video.